everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I normally talk about geeky things, but today we're gonna go into my backyard. Why? Because we're gonna talk about theater, clearly, obviously, no. So I wanted to wait to do this video before I could like get into an actual theater and express the differences between acting on stage and acting for the camera. But it is still pandemic times, and quite clearly people don't want other people in those spaces. I'd have to be wearing a mask, so it would kind of defeat some of the purpose. So we're just gonna do it in my backyard because I can at least have some of the same expression, some of the same kind of mentalities that I'm talking about. But we'll talk about things I can't exactly express on film at all while trying to express how you act on stage versus on camera. Let's go ahead, head to my backyard, and we will talk about it.
Welcome to my backyard. It is a work in progress because it's disgusting. It is also spring here in Minnesota, so the leaves are starting to bud. The trees are starting to bud at this point, but also we have creeping Charlie back here, and it has sucked away all of the nutrients from the ground, but it's a work in progress. We're working on it. But I have my lavalier mic here, which is going to be a very different sound than what you just experienced, but it is what it is. And I'm using this for a very specific reason. I took away my shotgun because I want you to be able to hear me no matter where I am, because the whole point of acting on screen versus acting on the stage is very different. So I'm normally a very emotive person. I'm a very bad Norwegian. I'm very expressive, and I am also like spicy food, which are two things that Norwegians don't enjoy. They don't enjoy being expressive, and they don't enjoy spicy food, but either way. Here I am in my backyard to explain to you the difference between acting on stage and acting on camera. Now, acting on camera is very, very different because obviously you've got microphones, whether that's a lavalier microphone or a shotgun microphone over your head with a boom. That is what you have. Plus, then after that, you also have ADR, where you're going to be talking into a condenser microphone to replace any sounds that are not great sounds that were picked up on site. My neighbors probably think I'm crazy sitting out here talking to a camera, but it's okay. Anyway, so when it comes to acting for the camera, it doesn't matter if I'm here or if I'm over here talking about my dad's weeping willow that is looking very sad right now. Either way, you can hear me just fine. And that's because I'm mic'd. Now, if my shotgun microphone, which is usually attached to my camera and not attached to a different sound functionality altogether, which is usually how it's done in film, that's why they have the clap, or they have the actual clapper to help sync audio and video, you wouldn't have been able to hear me very well. I would have had to have projected a lot for that microphone to hear me from way back there, and you'd be picking up a lot of the sounds. You might be picking up some bird sounds, some traffic sounds. I live in a pretty congested area, even though I have a very large backyard. So when you're on camera, no matter what, there's a microphone somewhere either attached to your person or right above you with a boom, generally speaking. Now, I don't have a team, so I don't have a boom, which is why it's attached to my camera most of the time, which is why I'm on a lavalier mic. Anyway, so as I'm talking to the camera, you'll notice that a lot of times I express like this. I talk with my hands a lot. I will gesture. These are all very normal. These are things I normally do. But I also know that this is the correct way to do it for talking to a camera. Because again, if I'm all the way over here talking like this, while you may be able to see it, you're not able to see what I'm normally doing. And so this is one of the biggest things that I notice whenever somebody is emoting a lot in something on screen, and that's where I'll normally say, oh, this person clearly was taken from theater and has never been given classes on how to properly act as an on-screen actor. And that's why, because they are still acting very big. Now, if I do the same emotes like this, and I'm talking like this much bigger, and I'm not changing my volume at all, because one, I don't want my neighbors to think I'm crazy, but also because I'm mic'd and it's gonna spike really badly if I actually like project. But if I'm talking like this and I'm doing bigger things, and I'm, oh no, or doing big things, it makes better sense because you're so far away from me that it's a lot easier to see what I'm doing when I move like this versus move like this, which is what I normally do when I'm standing in front of my camera about this distance for my videos. And again, when it comes to acting for the camera, again, you're going to be very close. Sometimes you're going to have a wide shot like that, but usually you're not going to have a lot of dialogue. And if you do, it feels a little weird to have it be so close by. Usually it doesn't happen. Sometimes there'll be sometimes it'll almost feel like a voiceover. But a lot of times you don't have a lot of dialogue when you have a wide shot like that. So a lot of the action happens like this, and people aren't usually talking at the camera. They're actually talking slightly off of the camera and acting with their acting partner. So that's really the biggest difference between acting for the stage and acting for the camera is the concept of how big you're supposed to be. Obviously, there's also a sound difference because, again, people who are acting for the camera are going to be mic'd, whether, again, that's on their person or on a boom, shotgun with a boom, or a shotgun attached to my camera, as an example. So that's one of the biggest differences. So volume is also something that you have to take into account because, again, on camera, you're going to be mic'd, so you can talk at normal levels and you don't have to project. You can talk like I'm talking right now, very conversationally. This is how I would normally be talking to a person next to me. And then, obviously in a crowded room, you're going to be talking a little bit louder or something like that. But again, they're going to move the microphone in such a way that you are able to talk more realistically. When you're on stage, however, that's going to be a little different because talking on stage is, you have to use something called projection. Now, projection, the way you project, and I'm not going to do it because, again, I've got this lavalier microphone that I am attached to at the moment, and I don't want to blow that out or blow out your eardrums. But essentially, you push up from the diaphragm. So you're pushing sound up. You're pushing the air up, which pushes the sound from the diaphragm, which means you're using pretty much your whole body to make sound. That's how projection works. And a lot of, if you've ever done music in any way, shape, or form, like singing music, you will have been told to sing from the diaphragm. Same concept. You're pushing air up from down here versus just using your lungs. So you're pushing air up and pushing out. Now, theater people are actually mic'd. If you guys don't know that, theater people are mic'd. They usually have a microphone that comes up right here and sits on their forehead like this. So if you've ever watched like videos of people on Broadway, you're going to see something right here on their head. It is the microphone. Now you might ask, why on earth are they putting a microphone on their forehead and not like right here or right here? They used to put microphones in those places, but that's because sound, when you speak, actually comes out of your full face. Not just out of your mouth. Your mouth and your lips and your teeth and all that, and your tongue, they can help manipulate the sound in such a way that makes different sounds so you can put together words because of those sounds. But your actual whole face is expressing noise when you speak. So when you have a microphone right here, it's still going to pick up the sound, and it's still going to sound just like it does coming out of your mouth. Because that's just how it works. That's how that science works of the human body. So people on stage generally are also mic'd, believe it or not. I was never mic'd. I grew up in a very small town, and even in college, they didn't mic us as much. I mean, they probably did for the musicals. I didn't do any musicals because once I was able to stop doing musicals as much, I didn't do them anymore because I'm not great at them. And I always felt very inferior. So they probably mic'd the people that did musicals, but they did not mic us that did plays. So I had to depend on projection a lot. So I know how to project very well and very easily. And one play specifically that I did in high school was Emma, and I played Miss Bates. And part of that is having to yell, because projection isn't yelling. Projection is talking like this, just louder. It still sounds very conversational. So that was where I really got to learn the true difference between projection and yelling, because I had to learn the finite differences between the two, which was astounding. But also, even if I did try to project, this would obviously be a very different situation because I am outside. The acoustics outside are very, very different than in a theater. Theaters are specifically designed to push sound into certain places. And so the acoustics there make it a lot easier to project. Plus, the difference, of course, being that I'm talking to you through a speaker, which is going to sound very different, even though theaters, again, are going to have speakers because their actors are mic'd. But it's going to still be in a situation where you are in a large room with very different acoustics than what you would have outside. So it either way wouldn't work for me to show you guys the sound difference. And maybe at some point I'll be able to do a projection lesson, but all you have to know is how to project and you'll do just fine on theater. But that's why I wanted to be out here, was to show you guys the difference between being right here and talking to you and emoting versus being way back there and emoting. But yeah, so that's the big difference. The two biggest differences between stage and theater is going to be how you emote. And because like I said, if I'm over here and I'm doing what I was doing over there, I mean, that was a lot more than I was doing, but I was doing this and I was doing this and that's obviously very outward right here. That's a lot. But if I go, that's a lot better than, right? Makes better sense. But if I'm back there, which mind you, that's not that far away. In a theater, you're still farther away than that in some cases. Or you're on a balcony and you're way high up, like on top of my roof kind of thing, right? Anyway, those are the biggest differences, is how you move and how you talk on screen versus on stage. Now, kind of the more kind of artsy-fartsy version of what I want to talk about is that it's a lot harder to be artistic on camera than it is to be on stage. Now, mind you, I don't have a preference between acting on stage or acting on camera, because they're both really fun in different ways. But if I'm wanting to be an artsy-fartsy person, or I want to be the artist of the story, acting on stage does tend to make me feel more artistic, because there's a lot less like scientific movement when it comes to theater. Now, granted, you have blocking in both. You have blocking in theater, you have blocking on stage, clearly, right? But, and now blocking just simply means, we'll talk about terminologies later, but blocking essentially means telling the actors where to stand and how to move and where to move and things like that. But when you're on camera, now with framing, you have the ability to emote certain things. You have the ability to manipulate your audience with how you frame the shot. You can make the audience feel like they're really tiny. You can make the audience feel like they're really big. You can make the audience feel like they should be nervous or they should be uncomfortable with how you frame it. So if I'm an actor and I'm talking to somebody who's off screen, I'm going to be like this, but I'm going to want to be like in this section of the film. And now this is like film 101, right? Filmmaking 101, because that way I've got this space right here in front of me. It looks a lot less weird than if they would have me right here, right? So if this is like this close of a shot, I have a very specific place that I have to stand. Now, if they wanted me to feel like, if they wanted to make the audience feel like I'm superior, they're going to take the camera. And there's a point to this, I promise. They're going to lower it. They're going to point it upwards. Let me see if I can actually frame this properly. They're going to frame it upwards, and I'm going to be standing taller than it. And I'm going to be talking to this person. Again, I'm going to want to be slightly off like this, and I'm going to be talking to this person. So now this is going to make the audience feel, especially if they're showing the other person from a higher angle with something like this, paying very close attention to the 180 rule. But again, that's filmmaking, not acting. Then you're going to really have this kind of emotion that I'm the bigger person in the conversation and they're the smaller person in the conversation. So I'm going to be obtrusive. The audience is going to look at me as aggressive. No matter what I say, the audience is going to look at me as kind of that realm of people. You know what I mean? So they're going to look at me as the aggressor, maybe the bully, maybe the boss. Anyway, so that's kind of the point, is with filming, with films, you can really emote certain things based on how you frame it. So it's very scientific as to where actors stand. You don't get the freedom you do on stage. Now, granted, there are definitely shows and plays where people need to be standing in very specific places for a musical number or whatever it may be. So there are going to be markers for stages too, but markers in film are like incredibly important. So if I'm supposed to be slightly off right here, I need to be standing on my marker right there. There's a marker right there. It's not, but there's a marker right there, I need to be standing literally right there, right? To make sure that the shot makes sense. If I'm off, the framing is off. So that means they either have to move the camera or move me. And because of how cameras are designed, it's easier to move the actor than it is to move the camera. Even though cameras are small these days, the way that they have it, like I have mine to autofocus, a lot of times they don't have those cameras on autofocus. So they have it set in such a way that the focus is so pristine that maybe the background is a slightly, is slightly blurred because they want me to be the focus, or maybe they want me to be crystal clear and something in the back be kind of blurry, and so they're going to maybe have a monster in the back, and I'm not going to pay attention to I'm not going to see the monster because I'm not looking at a display, and I'm not looking at the monster, and then they're going to want you as the audience to see the monster and to see the anticipating doom, and so they're going to want to switch the focus then to focus on something way in the back versus up here, where you'll notice now my hand is slightly blurred, right? So that's what I mean when it comes to it being very scientific. There's a very specific place the actor needs to stand and a very specific place the actor needs to exist. Where on stage you have more freedom. And so yeah, when it comes to artistic value, I much prefer to act on stage, and I prefer to direct movies, because I feel like the director, I am a firm believer in the auteur theory. If you guys are familiar with the auteur theory, I'm a firm believer in that the director is the true author of the film. They're the true artists. They're the ones that bring the film to life, truly, because everything else is so scientific and not very creative at all. So those are kind of the biggest differences between acting on stage and acting for the camera. They are pretty stark differences, and whether you prefer one or the other, again, I don't really have a preference. I really like both, because again, I mean, as you can tell, I'm not talking a lot with my hands right now. I've been talking a lot today. So talking with my hands, I don't know, just not feeling it at the moment. So I like, grew up very laid back. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to muster up the energy to be a stage actor. But at the same time, if I'm looking at it from an artistic point of view, I much prefer acting on stage, because again, I have a lot more freedom to be an artist. I have a lot more freedom to do what I want to do on stage versus being stuck with a very limited framing space, because on stage, it's the whole stage you get to work with versus a shot in which, because they do it shot by shot. And that's another thing, is that things are filmed very much out of context. So, they could be filming my portion of the conversation with this person. I may not be even talking to the actor that plays that role. I may be talking to somebody completely different. You know what I mean? And then when they switch it, this could be weeks later that this person enters into the conversation. They're like, yeah, no kidding. And again, I'm possibly not talking to the actor that is supposed to be playing that role. I am possibly talking to somebody completely different. Maybe an assistant, maybe another actor that was filming that day. Maybe it is the actor, who knows? There are a lot of times where the actor you are seeing is not really the actor. You're seeing the back of somebody else's head. Stand-in, stunt double, whatever it may be. So that's another really big difference between the two, is how things are filmed. I know a lot of directors that like filming the end of the movie first. They like filming the beginning and the end, and then they worry about the middle later. Or there are a lot of directors in the real world that are going to film all the exciting or funny moments first, so that they can send that off to make the trailer as soon as humanly possible, that kind of thing. So that's also a way that's done, but it's rarely ever filmed from beginning to end. Generally, sitcoms are filmed that way if they are in front of a live audience, but for the most part, that's not the case. And again, theater, that's different. You're doing it from beginning to end. And you're always acting with your acting partner. You're never not with your acting partner. So like I said, there are some huge differences between the two, and I feel like if you go from one to the other, you really need to take lessons. I actually took a class on how to act for the camera, because I genuinely didn't through all of high school. It wasn't until college that I started. So, and that was what I really wanted to do anyway. So when I was in college, I took an acting for the camera class, because that is something that I really wanted to do. But that's when I learned how different it was. And now that I've actually done it, now I actually realize just how different it is. So it's just different. So there you go. On to the outro.
So there you have it. Like I said, it's really hard to really show the difference aside from movement, just because of the fact that obviously the camera's only going to be able to pick up certain kinds of sounds, and I was mic'd. I'm not using it right now, obviously, but I'm using my shotgun right now. But even if I had used my shotgun, it still would have not picked up the same kind of situation because I'm not in an auditorium, which obviously is going to be different anyway. That's the whole point. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have a preference. Do you prefer to act on stage or on camera? Do not do voice acting. If you are a voice actor, do not express that down in the comments below, just because that is a different conversation we're gonna have another time. This one's specifically stage or screen. Let me know how you feel about stage or screen, if you have a preference down below. As I said, I really don't have a preference. I think both are great in different ways. I can be more creative in theater, whereas on screen I can't be as creative unless, of course, I'm the director. The auteur theory. Another thing we can talk about. That's not an acting thing. That is a film theory. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys all next time. If you guys want to see the last time I did an Acting 101, go ahead and click right here. Otherwise, if you want to see all the Acting 101 videos I've ever done, you guys can click right here to this playlist. Click here to subscribe to this channel. Click here to subscribe to my vlogging channel. Hit the notification bell on both of those channels, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye!